everyone. I'm Mandy-Lynn, your host of Port City Personalities here in St. Austin. I'm so excited about today's show, and I think you're going to be excited too. I'm going to be joined with this guy, Chris, and we're going to have a conversation. After Chris, I'll be joined by Mike, who's going to be talking about his business, followed by the amazing girls from Strange Grooves. Let's get started. Chris, thanks so much for coming by today.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks so much for coming by. It's been a minute since you've been in the studio, haven't it?
Well, this studio, I volunteered here many years ago, probably 40 years ago. It was, we did 10 microwave cooking shows, and we were sponsored by Sears, who brought in the instructor that taught it. We made peanut brittle here and all kinds of different things. So,
perfect. Yeah. So we can get you to cook us some dinner after this, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no.
we got a microwave. Anyway, I'm so excited. So I really wanted to talk to you. I know you do so much in the community, and I want to talk a little bit about your businesses, and then I want to talk a little bit about community involvement and what that means to you. So who are you and what do you do? Let's start with that.
Well, basically, I'm just a normal person like anybody else. I have a couple of businesses. I've volunteered for different boards and stuff like that. Right now on a board for taking care of the church. And basically I have a convenience store at 40 Loch Lomond, Cait's Corner. And also have the Bayside Ultramar gas station right now. And so between that, it's actually, last month was 24 years in the auxiliary police program. So
wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So one more and I'll have my 25 years in.
Oh, then do you get a pen?
Yeah, hard to say. I got a 20-year plaque when it was 20 years. And it's very rewarding as far as putting back into the community, trying to help people. There are all kinds of stories out there, which I'm not going to talk about, but that satisfaction of trying to be there as a backup for the regular guys and trying to help whenever possible for the community.
Chris, I've known you for a long time, and I know that you're a very busy guy, and you had your high-tech security company as well in addition to that. And I remember seeing you at the busiest times, running all of your businesses, talking about community engagement and involvement, and it was something that I'd always admired about you. And the fact that you were still making sure that you prioritized having time to volunteer with your service. Why was this important to you, the man that has 10 jobs already?
Well, one of the things is that you want to put back, you shouldn't just take from everything and not put back in. And I think it's very important. I'm a people-pleasing person anyway, from that point of view. So, but I don't know whether people really see, and it wouldn't be just me, it would be other businesses that are run, that work in the community, and that it's important for the community to sponsor them, to take care of them, because what happens basically is I give back to the community. Now, if my businesses fail, then it's pretty hard to get back to the community. For myself, everybody picks a different project or whatever, what they want to do. I do some small things, but on top of that, the big target that I have is the regional hospital. So basically, I was talking to my office manager this morning, and I thought it was around 13 or 15, but she said we've probably given about $20,000 so far to the regional and St. Joe's. And it's something everybody in the community is going to use, okay?
Yes.
It's not like I'm giving this something that if you're this or that, you're going to use. It's like everybody uses that hospital
at one point or another, yeah.
It's unfortunate, but we have to use it. So trying to make sure we have the best facilities and people there and everything else is very important. So I've decided that that's what my mandate is as far as giving back to the community through that source. Unfortunately, if people don't purchase and help the businesses out, and I spin it another way too. Java Moose, for instance, okay?
Sure.
Glenn gives back into the community, so I try to buy his product, which in turn helps him as well as helping me at the same time. So there's the big national companies sometimes don't give back into this community very large. The ABC companies that have big places. I'm not mentioning any names, but they take it all back to their homeland or their home area, their head office, and that's why anybody that's more local here, by supporting them, is really supporting everything around it as well.
Absolutely. And so let's talk a little bit about where are you from? Are you from St. John?
Well, originally I'm from Rishabuktu, okay, which is in Kent County. I was born and raised there. I worked on my uncle's farm It was a fishing village, although I don't like fish. I grew up there until I was 9 years old. My dad got a job of being the secretary president of NB Command for Royal Canadian Legion. So we moved here to St. John, and St. John's my home. And
How old were you then, roughly?
I was 9 when I left and came here.
Yep.
So I've been here since I was 9, but St. John's home. So, love the city, love the people. You can't go anywhere where you don't bump into somebody that you know, which is a great feeling. If you're in Toronto, you went to a mall, you're very unlikely you're going to bump into anybody you know. Here, it happens a lot for people. People are very friendly here and good from that point of view.
Absolutely. So talk to me a little bit about supporting community for community, your whole mantra on that. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot because basically, there's a lot of people out there that need help and need support, and you try to give back by doing that. You unfortunately have to have a business, like one of them right now is not doing that well. Illegal tobacco and illegal vaping is really killing the business because it was so reliant on 75% was tobacco sales, and that's shrinking now. A lot of people buying the illegal stuff and that.
Which is dangerous, right? Because it's not government controlled,
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah, that's right. And you don't know what's in some of the illegal vaping. They're mixing it up, and you don't know what you're getting. And hopefully, you're getting something that's not going to create a problem in 10 or 15 years where
Sure.
you have more problems. And unfortunately, government has too much tax, of course, but we have no control over that. But at least it can pay the bills to keep some of our facilities running.
Absolutely. And so you own a few businesses in the community, and why is that important to you?
It's important because I love the people, and I want to give back to the people.
Talk about that kind of ecosystem, though, where it's, talk about that.
So, in what way do you mean?
Like in terms of keeping employment here in the city?
Oh yeah, well it's very important. Like right now, like I say, Cait's Corner, which is at 40 Loch Lomond, it's a great traffic flow area. I've got a drive-through window now. That's important to me because I've got people that for one reason or another can't get out of the car, or maybe they have a baby in the back seat, so it's a lot of work for them to get the baby out, to go in, to buy their bread and milk and all that stuff, so they can go through the drive-through window and they can facilitate all those things without having to get out. So it gives back to the community in the point of giving them something that they need that isn't really accessibility. Yeah, yeah. We are wheelchair accessible too at that location. There's a ramp on the side for them to be able to get in that way. Hopefully soon we'll maybe get a button so that they can open the door automatically too. But we have one that used to come there and they just knock at the window and we'd open the door for them to make sure. So it's very important to give back that way to everybody. And then of course, I got 15 employees that
Wow.
livelihood for that, which is small compared to a lot of places. But we have a dental medical plan that they have available if they want. And I pay half that plan and everything. So it works out pretty good. Yeah.
And you have a gas station too. What's it like having a gas station? Is that busy?
Well, I didn't really want it. I was very happy where it was.
That's how every business comes across, I think.
And the guy talked me into it, and he just gave me a number, and I went home that night. I don't want that. I don't know anything about gas. And so then what happens is my head kept going. I couldn't sleep that night because I'm a numbers person. And so anyway, I just ended up buying it and changing it around and increasing it. So it's done fairly well. We have I always have a plan B and plan C. Like I have a commercial kitchen at Cait's Corner, okay, which I didn't want to open. Now I've got a couple of people that want to run the kitchen, so that's
exciting.
It is. At the other place, two fat guys in a takeout has opened up there now.
And that's the name of it.
That's what the name is. Donnie Elliott had it before that. And Donnie, he's 83 years old. His back was bothering him, so he went to, he sold his house and went to PEI to live with his son. He just passed away Wednesday.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's good that things are going. It brings people in. It helps the fuel the gas station at the same time. And the guys seem to be doing good. So, and I don't overcharge anybody rent-wise or anything. So it's one of those things where you want both people to work. And if you're too greedy,
It's
you're not gonna.
symbiotic, yeah. Give and
So you
take,
got to be
right?
fair, right?
Yep.
As if it was yourself doing that part. I don't want to get into food, but I will have to get into food at the Cain's location if someone else doesn't take it, because it's all set up as a commercial kitchen now. I already have my license and everything for it, but I'm trying to slow down a little bit in that field. So I sold the alarm company just to get more time back. I don't want more money, I want more time back in my life. And again, that's to do some community volunteer work and stuff. I can do more of that.
Yeah, and I know, because I know that's important. I remember certain times where, like, I remember you, I think the first few times that we've met is where you'd be out in a storm and you would dedicate hours to making sure that doctors and nurses, and you're probably going to not like me saying this on TV, but making sure that you were using your plow truck not only to plow people out, but to even drive them to work, because community.
That's what people should do, you know what I mean? It's not all about money, it's not all about that, it's about trying to help people out and everything. Those people are trying to do their job and everything, so it makes sense, to do that. I mean, when I'm doing policing out in the cars and stuff like that, or doing whatever the case may be, because there's many different things. About a month ago, they called me up and said, "Would you be the bad guy?" I said, "Sure." So they were training the officers on the platoons how to go into a school, and I'm the bad guy, and they've got their guns, and they're the normal ones that they use, but they have a paintball thing in it anyway. So, and it's good because they're learning how to train themselves not to make mistakes and stuff like that. So it works out great. I've had situations, the rewarding part, we had probably 18, 20 years ago, we got a call to go down to the Allison grounds and look for a little boy we couldn't find. And so what happens then, we went there and found him in the back of a car sleeping. So it was great to take him home, get him back with his parents and everything.
Yeah.
So those are things that don't happen every day, but they do happen, and they're very rewarding as far as giving back.
Of course. Chris, thank you so much for coming in today.
No problem.
We sure appreciate it always.
Right.
Thank you
Thanks.
for everything that you do.
Okay, take care.
Mike, Tire Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
How's things?
Oh, great.
What's
Awesome.
new and exciting?
Well, I have a new shop.
You do?
Yes.
Let's talk about that. What is
Yes.
this new shop?
My new shop is Discount Tire and Automotive down on 255 Ross Avenue.
Okay, and what do you do at that shop?
Well, we do full automotive,
Okay, Such
brakes
as?
and small stuff, and then we also do tires. That's our main thing, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
We do tires. All right, so I want to talk to you about that. So what got you started in doing tires?
Okay, well, we have to go back around 30 years. So around 30 years ago, when I was living in Nova Scotia, I had a small store, and I wanted to help increase revenue and stuff like that. And one of the things that I for whatever reason I liked was tires. I always talked about tires because I was involved with racing, going off-road, big tires, and what have you. So I said, it sounds a little bit interesting. I think I'll get into selling a few tires. So I just actually started in a small little store selling a few tires here and there to help generate extra revenue.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you've been doing this for quite some time, and
Yeah.
why tires? Why tires? Why is it important to you for folks to have the best tire?
Well, tires is something that's going to continue into the future. Every vehicle that's on the road today is going to need tires, irregardless if it's powered by gas or it's powered by electricity. You're going to need tires. Tires is the main safety thing that's between your vehicle and the road,
Absolutely.
right? It's important to have good tires.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the reason why I wanted to have a conversation with you today was also to talk about community. So you're very involved in your community, and why is being involved in the community important?
Well, I moved back to New Brunswick probably around 8 to 10 years ago, and when I moved back here, I just started selling tires outside of my home in Kingston, on the Kingston Peninsula. I had a trailer sitting there and I was just selling tires, and then it started to sell more and more, and it just started to grow, and then we moved it into the city and we started to grow. But my main objective in Discount Tire was to provide people today, because of the cost of living and the cost of keeping your car good on the road is to provide people with something that they could afford at a low cost, but also provide them good quality. And that's where the discount comes into play. So we want to give the customer a discounted tire, cheap in price, not cheap in quality, but cheap in price, and also used tires, because we wanted to, one, reuse tires. There's so many tires going to the landfill sites and stuff like that are being chewed up for different things. So to sell used tires is one way to help the environment. So that's another thing that we do, is we sell used tires as well.
That's awesome. Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come in here today. Always appreciate you.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello.
So nice to meet you in person finally. I'm such a fan.
We're always just lurking and creeping everybody's profiles usually, so just seeing what you're up to.
Yeah, I feel like we're meeting, like we're fans as well. So
Thank you so much. So I guess we can start with, who are you and what do you do? And then we'll move to you.
My name's Cait Milberry, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Strange Grooves podcast.
Awesome. And you?
I am Cherise Letson, and I'm the other half of the Strange Grooves podcast.
Awesome. So you have an amazing fan base. What is this podcast? What do you talk about? What do you cover? I have so many questions.
I guess in a nutshell, what we talk about is just people's love of music, including our own, and the various formats in which people collect and listen to music, as well in how they share the memories made by listening or collecting it. So that's a big part of our show. I mean, our friendship really started as us sharing things on the internet, records and things that we had been listening to, and we were both in the business community, and we would see that, and that was kind of like our mutual interest. And then one time we kind of started hanging out, and we realized we really both loved the Stampeders, like a lot, and had seen them a lot, and so we were like, we should really hang out. And, and we started realizing that a lot of other people love music too, obviously.
Of course.
But it's not age dependent, but we feel that a lot of times as you do age, it's harder sometimes to express those emotions, and you're going out to these big sold out shows or really small venues, and you're going through a lot in life, and sometimes it's really, I think it's critical to be able to have a safe space to share and talk about, you know, great bands, but also the emotions that are occurring by listening to them and the things that are going on in life.
Yeah, like our tagline is, you know, we dig into life's deep cuts. So it's sort of, you know, I feel like no matter what, no matter who you are, like we've had people on the show that aren't even, they're like, oh, well, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Like, I'm not a record collector, I'm not a musician, but I feel like no matter what, it's, you know, if someone has a song or an artist that has had a profound impact on their lives. Like I always say, like music is sort of like the equalizer in a way. Like someone, you know, you can always find common ground somehow with music. So that's sort of been kind of our mission for over the last 5 years.
It's a great one though, because music is an international language. It really is. Yeah. It brings like anybody, you can connect through music quite easily. Would you agree with that?
1000%.
Absolutely.
And I think what we also have noticed over the past now almost 6 years is that whether it was before the pandemic, after, we realized that there's a lot of successes and tragedies happening in the same day for a lot of people. And it doesn't matter whether you're a talented musician, you know, a band with a lot of seniority, or just someone that loves music. We find there's a lot of meat to the bone when you're just asking real life questions. Mm-hmm. And it can help with people in their business, or helping with the business in the music industry, or just helping them in a mental health capacity. And that in turn has really helped the two of us grow the show from a business standpoint, but also to be able to express our love of music, to go out to more shows and to connect more on a, I don't know, a real raw level. And that's not to sound cheesy or, you know, to say the right things, but it is real. Sometimes it's not always fun. Sometimes shows can be really emotional, and meeting up with our friends and family, there can be a lot happening. And sometimes that is the safe space where we can go and have that moment and have the happy tears and get home safely and have those memories. I think that's a big part of our life and why we are trying to push the show so much now in 2023.
Absolutely. And so I want to start kind of from the beginning. So how did you meet? How long ago? And what was it from? Just the internet? That small
Basically,
thing?
I'd say probably
2015.
Yeah.
It was 2015. And I I was working as a business reporter at the time, and Cait was working in the business community. And I think what made us connect was like I've always seen her around like on Twitter, and I think I just like asked to like use her photo in a story. Once, and that's sort of how it started.
And then I think very quickly, like we started talking, and I said, "Hey, there's this Learn to Roller Skate program. You should come." And we started hanging out, and
No one's ever asked me to roller skate. I don't have the
teach you
coordination
anytime.
though.
She was a great coach. I still like. I can skate and not die. So that's
all
a
we
big
ever want.
accomplishment.
That's all we ever want in life, right? But
Yeah.
That's
no,
your tagline for skating. Learn
but
to skate and not die.
afterwards, you know, even a big part of the roller derby community is just having a safe, inclusive space where people of all different walks of
Backgrounds.
life, backgrounds, you know, different coordinations of exercise. Like, you know, I never played sports. It was a great place. One of the things that I found after we would play sports was that we would always go out to a place where there would be music happening or have something to eat. And with Cherise and I, it would always be us, well, let's hang out and listen to some records.
Oh.
Right? And that's kind of how it started. And then honestly, when we say this, it's literally how it happened. We had a little Zoom recorder that I used to record a podcast on. And when I
Okay.
recorded, it was about manufacturing. It was kind of
Okay.
about boring things, but I found it very interesting.
Yeah.
That's
And I
subjective.
loved
Yeah.
doing it. And we just hit record one night. And then
So there was no plan.
There was no plan.
and here's the funny
It's
thing.
important
We
to-
both have, you know, a lot of marketing, like we run a marketing business
Yes.
now as our full-time jobs, but it's one of those things, like sometimes you fall backwards into things that you ideally would love to have planned out or to do better or have somebody have a better perspective on. But sometimes the best things don't have that proactive ability.
Right.
And we've spent the past 5 years really trying to understand who our people are, who want to be part of our, I would say, our producer crew, people that support the show, people that come to shows that we help put on. That's been a big, big part for us.
And so so you hit record that night,
Yeah.
and what was the idea behind it? Was it just, hey, we have a lot of really cool conversations, let's get something out there? Was there a plan to record this and have it go out into the world?
Yeah, like I think respectively, like we both like kind of wrote about our record collections and wrote about music on our respective like blogs and on social media.
Sure.
And so I think it was just sort of, and we had these like really rich, cool conversations about music. And I think let's just try recording one essentially.
And to be fair, we had the tools, the software,
Yeah.
and some of the
knowledge.
knowledge to be able to just. Now, could we have done it a lot better? Absolutely. I think everybody with any project will say that, right? But I think there's a lot of really big impact in massive imperfect action. So
Agreed.
like we could always have better mics or a more mobile
Oh, yeah.
setup or something. But I think over time we're really starting to understand where that fits and then where that investment lays. And then we can do that accordingly to make the show better for people who want to be part of it.
Yeah, I think looking back and listening to our early episodes, it kind of brings that, yeah, of course, like, yeah, the Zoom isn't the best, like, state-of-the-art recording technology, but it brings that vibe of, like, you know, you're hanging out with us, when we've had guests and stuff, you feel like you're kind of in the
Audio
room,
and visual concept
you're in
together, you're
someone's
mixing it.
basement, listening
Yeah,
to records
100%.
and talking about music.
Because it's
sort
two
of
different mediums. You're able
Yeah.
to, capture both audiences, regardless of what their preference is, right?
cool. Yeah.
So there's that aspect. And then when you think about even like Conan, he does a podcast now, and when he first started doing it after the show, he talks about the imperfections all the time. Like he's like, we have state-of-the-art technology here, and yet nobody told any of our guests you shouldn't put aluminum straws next to the mic. Like there's
It's true though.
There's human error.
Thank you for pointing that out. It's so true.
Yeah, there's human
true.
error in it. And then, so the thing about what you girls do, which I think a lot of your fans like and appreciate, is it's tasteful, it's organic, it's wholesome, and what's like a setup to the conversations that you have now? Like I'm talking like what you're doing now as opposed to when you first started.
I think in the beginning it was, in the very early episodes anyways, it was just us, Cait and I. We still do episodes where it's just us being silly, catching
Sure.
up, talking about, recent shows we've been to, whatever. But I think what we realized kind of early on is, the show gets a little more interesting when you bring in other voices and other guests. And I think over the last 5 years, like having, regular guests and having a wide variety of guests has been
Of course.
really important. So I think that would be the biggest change as well.
And from like a communication standpoint, we've always tried to empower anybody who wants to be part of our show, whether they wanted to write, whether they wanted to apply for festivals through, our media, and we're always very humbled by those things. So we've always tried to get tickets to things and for younger people to be part of like the Strange Grooves community. And I would also say too, like it's a big part for us to try to continue that on. And we want people to feel very comfortable. Safety and inclusivity and the accessibility to our show has been a big thing for us the past year. And we've been doing a bit of traveling and trying to really figure out how do people listen, how do they watch, what do they want to hear. And from Cherise being, a great reporter and a great writer, and for me watching so much content and music documentaries and interviews,
you're the perfect pair.
I don't want to ask the same questions when we do have the opportunity to interview the Stampeders.
And there's not, because I don't see a trace of redundancy in what you do. So it's very,
So we hope that when they leave the room, that they feel that it was worth their time in a really sincere way, and that it wasn't just talking tunes with a couple chickies. But
they took something away from
and that maybe we asked them something that made them think back to a really important moment that they haven't thought about in a long time, or a music memory. Thought-provoking, emotional, gives me goosebumps, honestly. But it should, I think that's the stuff we don't want to bother if it's just going to be oversaturated, just asking like, what made you do this new album? What inspires you? Like, you can find that on the internet. What about like what helps you continue to wake up every day, given how the state of the world is? What made you want to continue to write an album in this studio?
So are you afraid to touch the harder topics with folks? Or do you find that that's the conversations that are good to be had for folks so that they're able to, like myself personally, I find that it adds a certain element of relatability to the listeners or the viewers.
Yeah, I think we don't ever like push guests where they don't want to go, but I think what we found over the years and over the course of our episodes is that people, it's very chill. It's very conversational, and I think when people get comfortable, they tend to open up, and the conversation goes some really great and emotional, like rich places. So
I would even say that the more preparation we give people who have media training, those interviews are very good, but it's the folks that say, oh, I don't know if I'd be very good on the show. I've never done an interview before. I mean, I like music, or I have a massive CD collection, or, I've gone to 100 Phish shows, but I could never talk about music. They end up being some of my favorite episodes, and Cherise, I know she agrees, but those are the ones that end up going in. We think that they're only going to be 20 or so minutes, and they end up being an hour, hour and 15 minutes, and they teach us so much, not only about, and like, they're usually our friends or colleagues or people that we've been suggested to interview that we've then gotten to know over time. We don't just throw someone in the hot seat, and ask them to chat about their life, but we do feel that in those instances, people, I think we do try to, again, make them feel safe and make them maybe reignite a passion about music, or just going home and re-listening to an album they used to listen to in high school, or you know what I mean? And if that makes them feel like getting some stuff done that day, then I feel like we've accomplished our mission. And I think our original mission was just to share the love of music with people.
And that was going to be one of my questions, which would be like, what is the objective of the show?
I think that's it really at its core, and sharing, in all formats and
inclusivity.
Creating a space where people can talk about the music they love. And I find too, even if if we have a guest where it's like, for instance, I'm not a huge Phish fan, don't kill me, but like having a conversation with someone that's been to 100 shows and collects all their ticket stubs and set lists in a book, like that's contagious. When you talk to people about something they love and they're passionate about, it's contagious, right? And you're excited for them. And it's just been such a great experience over the last 5 years.
And we can't wait to have you on the show.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Absolutely, I'd love to. So, talk to me about your background. First off, what's your background? Growing up, was there always just this big love of music? Was there this big love of creation? Because you're a self-creator, self-promoter, entrepreneur, like you took it to the next stage. I'll start with you.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. I definitely always had music around me as a kid. My whole family always loved different styles of music. And one thing that they always said to me is don't be judgmental based on what people feel about styles of music. So it was very easy to say that country was a bit lame when I was in middle school, but like I thought 90s country was baller.
Yeah.
It's still some
is.
of my
It's
favorite
still
music,
same,
right?
Same here, yeah.
But, you know, I think they really taught me to be non-judgmental to different formats and genres of music at a really young age. So
Just so that you'd be more open and susceptible to listening to new
and I mean,
content.
I listened to a lot of different music growing up, and a lot of that stuff is the stuff I'm listening to now. Not so much new music, or, you know, I'd like to say that I'm one of those, but I end up reverting back. But it was always around, and it definitely, it helps me be the creative person that I am without being a musician, without being an engineer, or without, I'm a catalog of information, and I try to use that to help the people and the clients that I work with. And some of them are bands, musicians, different organizations, but a lot of those skills tend to topple over.
Right.
And
Which is a good thing.
and music is a great conversation topic.
To anything.
To-
So
to
people
that-
love talking about music the way they like to talk about their children, their businesses.
Yep.
It's a great common ground for anything, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's similar to Cait. Like I always grew up with music in the house. Like a big thing for me was Oldies 93 CFBC. St. Genres, know, if you know, you know. That was always on the radio, in the car, in the house. My mom, I remember my mother being like an encyclopedia to the music. Like I'd be like, Mom, who sings this song? And she'd like know the artist and the name. Like,
And Janice still does. Shout out Janice.
yes, she's amazing for that. And of course my dad too, like he collected vinyl. He was into kind of the heavier stuff,
yeah.
like Sabbath and all that
Yep.
stuff as well. And I think, you know, those songs, I think we all go through, and Cait kind of touched on this too, like as we grow up, like you have this like, I don't like oldies, or like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
like country or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like when I got started getting into my teens, I really reverted back to, you know, the oldies, 60s, 70s rock and roll.
Oh, yeah. I
And-
think we all went through that
and
stage.
you know,
It's a great one.
and just having that's those songs in that era have been kind of like the soundtrack to my life in a lot
Yes,
of ways. And
yeah.
there's still so much like from that time that I'm still discovering, right? And artists and bands that are like unknown that are coming out now.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, so that's sort of been my, I guess, love, I guess. Of course, I listen to new music as well and always
course.
checking out new
Yeah, yeah,
things. But again,
yeah.
I always kind of go back to that era. And I think music as well, like I think my background professionally was, you know, in journalism and in marketing now. And I found that I always was like, in journalism, I was always drawn to like the news
Yep.
part of the thing, like hard news. And I
Yep.
didn't ever want to talk about or get into music journalism because like music was so precious to me in a
Yeah,
way.
that's
Like,
true.
and I didn't want to be critical of it, and I didn't want to be a critic because like it's so
love that.
subjective in a way, right? So I think what's been so great with Strange Grooves and this project is that it's filling a void for me, and I'm able to use that sort of that skill set and that, you know, drive for something that's really cool, like in media. So
And we get to meet some of our favorite musicians.
exactly,
So
and
It's
yeah,
pretty-
on
it's
their
pretty
level,
cool.
it's so great. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll get into that in a second. But the first question is, how did you get the name?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Well, I think for us, like it was pretty, I don't know, straightforward. We're a strange bunch, and we'd always like call ourselves a little like a strange meeting or a strange crew. And the groove is just like the record kind
Yep.
of thing. And
Yeah.
Grooves, like grooves.
I was really
yeah.
good at searching for domains, so I looked her up and it was available. So we did it.
Like
and then
any great project, I looked it
Yeah,
up. It
and
was free, so I took it.
we've had a couple, you know, logo changes, and you know, we've really just tried to focus on the show itself and the format of
Great.
the show and just
Wonderful.
getting it out there. And
Yep.
now it's about trying to format it to get it out to even more audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Travel a little bit more, try to do a lot more pop-ups, live shows, try to do things that get people more involved instead of
Yes.
it being
Heck
more
yeah.
in the studio, those kinds of things. Now we've pretty much got that one checked off. Now we really want to tour and do different things with the show.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Very nice. And so let's talk about Fangirl Moments. So I know that every guest is your favorite, of
Yeah.
course.
Yes, of
but
course.
talk about any highlights or moments where you're like, whoa, this is pretty phenomenal. Like, was there a get that you were like, wow?
I'll let Cherise go first.
Yeah, mine's an obvious one. I've talked about it many times on the show. So I remember when we first started, I remember being like, Cait, do you think if we got big enough, we could have Ken Tobias on the show? And Ken, like growing up and listening to Oldies 93 CFBC, that was, I grew up listening to Ken's music,
Yes,
right? And I always
yes.
knew that if he's watching this, he's probably laughing. But like I always knew that he was from St. John. My mom would be like, oh yeah, he's from St. John. And he like lives on the east side. And like, I'm like, oh, that's cool.
She would soon be like, oh my God.
Yeah, like we would be like, one day I remember my mom and I in the car. Like we were sitting like in the parking lot, like no, like at a traffic light, and my mom's like, "Give a Little Love" was like on the radio,
Yes.
and my mom's like, "Cherise," she's like, "That's Ken Tobias," and he's just like walking at the crosswalk of the movie theater, and I'm like, "Oh my God, like he's so cool."
Yeah. Did you run over and fangirl or no?
No, like we were in the car. I didn't
Yeah,
want to like
yeah.
get out of a moving vehicle
Yeah,
or
yeah,
anything. That was
yeah.
and I was.
Oh, I thought like you were pulled out front and he was walking
Oh
by.
no, I I probably would have said something
Yeah,
at that point.
yeah.
But anyway, so I'm like, do you think we could have him on the show? Because it'd be really cool. And I think at one point I just reached out to his manager, also his brother Tony, and it was super easy. He's like, yeah, no, sure. Like he's just hanging out in the studio and
That's such a St. John
painting.
thing, though.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, come on over. It wasn't like this big thing. And I remember, getting in the car and like I brought my record for him to sign and I remember like pulling up to the driveway and Kate's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
You're all
yeah."
shaky and like, oh.
I'm like, because meeting your heroes or like meeting someone that you admire, right? And of course, Ken is the nicest human being.
Of course.
His mom Laura made us pound cakes, and like we had like
That's amazing.
we went down. Yeah, we went down to the basement where he paints,
Yes.
and he still
Yeah.
records music. And we just hung out there for a couple hours. And that episode, he's just such a good storyteller, and he has had this amazing career that a lot of people don't know. Like a lot of people know him for like his songs in the '70s, but a lot of people don't know he like went to Los Angeles. Like Bill Medley from the Righteous Brothers brought him down there as a salaried songwriter and stuff like that. And so that episode, it's one of my favorites because it's just like him just spewing like these amazing stories, and then us being like, what? Like, wow. Like, so that was probably a highlight as well for that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a big
That
one.
is
And
amazing. Congratulations.
yeah, and now I'm.
And we recently went there to LA, and it was kind of fun because
Yeah.
it's like when we interviewed him,
Okay.
things can seem so far away or out
Of
of,
course,
your
of
ecosystem,
course.
right? So going there and hearing you talk about your trip and stuff as well, it was really big for us to go and see some of like those landmarks and those iconic spots. And when we talk about like fangirl moments, I don't know if it's so much a fangirl moment because it's not so much, but I mean I definitely think meeting the Stampeders stands out for me. We've met them now 3 times,
Yeah.
and each time was even more magical because one, now we've established a relationship with them.
Yep.
We have the ability to actually meet their families and sit with them and like really not just be fans, but to be friends and to come along with them,
Yeah.
which
It just felt
it
like
changes
a
how
great
you listen to the
conversation.
music.
Yeah,
and then
you
to,
have a,
to
a
have our
renowned
parents
respect.
in the crowd who brought us to those original shows, and to see them seeing us thrive is a really, I think that's the fangirl moment for me. And I'm not trying to be like cheesy or anything,
No,
against
no,
it, but I think that's
I get it. I
and
get it.
like,
Hey, I
we've,
get it, yeah.
We've met some really great people. Like we just met Kim Mitchell like about a month ago. We've met like Matt Mays. We've met some really incredible people. But I definitely say that was probably one of my favorite moments.
Yeah.
But it's funny, and for anybody that's watching or anybody that listens to you, it's the just ask. So I remember when I first started doing campus radio, it was like that. And a few of my friends said, well, just ask. The worst thing they tell you is no. And one of my favorite things is rejection also. So it's like they couldn't do it. So when you get, big names that can't. So I think my moment was probably Fred Penner. When he did, he did a contest with me on the radio, and it was campus radio. And I remember the contest; the lines didn't work, everything went wrong, or something. But it was beautiful. No, it was great. It was still like, yeah, I'm doing a contest with Fred Penner.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
I never thought like growing up that. So you think of that, or Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod.
That's
like,
iconic.
Oh my gosh.
yeah, like having them like do like silly videos. So and like it's. Like when you think of that, if you don't ask, or we had Nancy Regan on, and she's lovely. But when you grow up watching and listening to these folks, and then you're able to have the opportunity to get behind the scenes with them and have those intimate conversations.
Yeah.
You're doing 2 things. You're doing 3 things. Arguably, you're showing folks that you just ask, you can do it. You're also you're being nosy for yourself and, finding information out. And I tell people all the time, like, I don't look creepy if it's on TV.
Well, and here's the thing, like, to go to like your James Corden experience.
Yes.
Like that's super cool. And if it's not get up all in their grill and just ask, but it's about like time, place, be classy about it, be the kind of person that you would want to sit and have a question with or do a shout
Absolutely.
out for. Otherwise it's just forced, and you look back on it, you say, I probably forced the person to be in our studio and to like talk about music. You can kind of
Yeah.
see it in their
Yeah.
psychology.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think for us, like that's been a big part for us, is just being able to ask with integrity and to have a little bit of an outline, and then to say that, you know, we usually do it in one take. We want people to feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
And when we do get the opportunity to go, you know, to different places and meet, you know, celebrities or different bands and things like that, we try to just be very chill. And it's hard not to do the Wayne and Garth "we're not worthy" in front of us. You know, it's hard. Sometimes it is hard, but we also want to be taken seriously, and to be, you know, now at this point, some of the people that we've really admired and looked up to that are incredible international musicians are giving us very good structured feedback to improve our show.
And that's a good thing to have
phenomenal.
too, right?
Yeah.
Constructive criticism's perfect.
You know,
Right?
old Cait doesn't like it, but Cait that wants the show to grow and to really reach different audiences has to remember that even in our job of like strategic marketing and advice and things, getting tunnel vision about your own project can sometimes take out the opportunities.
Yeah.
So we really try to explore all the opportunities and the different people that want to talk to us. And
Absolutely.
everybody has somebody that in the back of their mind who they know would be a great guest. So if anyone is listening and they might have a great guest, let us know.
Yes.
That's how we found a lot of like, we found the
Referrals, yeah.
biggest record collection, I would say, probably in New Brunswick. And it's
No way.
It's in Kingston, New Brunswick.
Kingston, New Brunswick. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Okay. And how many records we talking?
Probably
20 or 30?
Yeah, 20,000.
Oh my gosh.
And that's not including the CDs, the tapes, the music photography.
And did you go there? And
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we've been there twice. We just
Yeah.
filmed a new episode.
So
It'll
that'll
probably
be coming out probably when this show airs.
Beautiful.
So we'll do
Okay.
a swap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But those are the things where that was someone, you know, it was a different relationship at the time, but someone was like, hey, you have to meet this person. We kind of knew them from a local record store, seeing them, and it's just one of those things. People facilitate good people to meet, and that's how we've usually met every guest.
That's phenomenal.
So
So how much have you grown? So when you first started, I want to go back, and sorry to keep going back, but I just want folks to really know like your growth and you know how phenomenally amazing it is. So when you started and you did your recording, what did you do with that recording? Did that ever make it to air? Like what did you do with that?
It was on SoundCloud.
yeah,
Perfect.
and-
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yep.
think you know, for those
We've all done the
listening,
SoundCloud thing.
we've all done it, and I
Yep.
think it's really important to just make sure that you keep your episodes just all in one place.
Yeah.
if you can.
Absolutely.
And try to find
Great
them, 'cause
advice.
we're looking for those first three.
Yeah, we're in the hunt right now. Lots of memory card digging at the moment.
You know, but
Floppy disks.
for us, it was just how do we put it out? How do we get a shareable URL?
Yes.
And then it was, well, obviously, like we know that our audiences want to watch
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing. So how do we do that? Maybe it's just setting our phone up for a portion of the episode.
Sure.
We listened to that feedback, and it was like, well, we want more of seeing you guys. We want more of seeing the guests. We want
Yeah.
to see their homes, their collections.
Yeah.
And,
Heck yeah.
And eventually, it's just been a series of taking notes and figuring out, well, what are the better URLs for our audiences to be able to share the show for us? How do we give them better remarketing materials?
Right.
How do we, you know, curate experiences and live events that people, no matter what they're going through in life, feel that it's worth their time to come out and give us a half an hour? And that's kind of been the biggest part about how we delegate and distribute the show in the past 6 years. Is it's probably been on a year by year basis.
And that leads into my next question. So what is your next 1 year? Where do you want to be? Where do we stop? Like what is the,
You want me to go with
what
that?
is
There
the
you go.
end
Yeah,
game?
I'll build off of it.
September will be our 6 years, which is really wild. And I think they say like when you're doing something really fun, the time just flies.
Yes.
I think with any hobby or company or business, you can always be doing a lot more.
Yep.
We don't try to be too hard on ourselves for that. We just try to keep a good consistency and a good cadence of
Okay.
making sure that it stays a good, healthy outlet for us, and that our audience still has great content to be able to see that isn't just on an automated basis.
Of course.
Now, from a growth perspective, we did just recently go out to Los Angeles, and that was
How long ago were you in Los Angeles?
in March.
Rich, yeah.
We were April, so we weren't far
Yeah,
behind
not far
you.
apart.
Yeah, we copied you.
All the Johners went to
Yeah.
California.
But we went out there as an investment of time and to meet with a few different people and to really just try to make sure that, you know, we're putting our time and our efforts in different buckets and to grow the show in different ways. Because I think, and I'm not saying this in an offensive way to New Brunswick, but I think sometimes we get into that bubble, and I think sometimes
That's anybody anywhere.
from a cost perspective, from a distribution perspective,
Of course.
you only know what you know,
That's
and then
right.
you take it out a little bit and you realize that people will say yes to you, and people do want to see people who are sincere and genuine. They want to see the show grow. So when we did go out there, it was a really great investment of time and a great experience for us. We met one of like our biggest icons, Pamela DeBar. And that's huge for us. We both read her book as teenagers. We really both live not vicariously through her, but through the eyes of people who were there when good music was being created and happening. And to be able to see all those spots in like Laurel Canyon and, you know, like all the biggest like rock places where like Guns N' Roses signed their first deal gives us a lot of different subject matter, a lot of different contacts, and a lot of different ways to then build the show, aside from it just being a New Brunswick focused or regional type show.
You have to go outside of the bubble to do your research and your homework.
And,
Easy peasy.
And it's going at an exponential rate. So it looks like we'll be traveling probably in July. We were hoping to do it a bit sooner, but
Right.
You know, sometimes Air Canada is a little bit more costly than they like to, you know, they like to play around sometimes. So we're waiting, and we're being very strategic about
course.
everything, and then setting up meetings and stuff while we go back out there. And we've got a few different concerts and stuff coming up that we'll be doing. And we just recently did our first live show.
And
It was amazing. We gave you a toe from it, with collaboration with Motherhood. It was our first live show, and it went great.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're so thrilled.
Probably should have done it a long time ago. But,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things, and I'm really glad that we did wait, because it was pretty much a sold out show.
awesome.
All our
Congratulations.
parents came. That was really I'm really proud of that moment. When you talk about fangirl moments, I'd probably say that goes in next in line.
That's fantastic.
Because having them at the shows is really cool. And I know that they're having a good time and they love seeing those bands. And us being there is really cool, and getting the picture on Facebook, hey, we're with the kid, you know what I mean? Like, that's really cool. But to see them, like I said, seeing us thrive, or to kind of be around, or to be at our live show, seeing people.
Actually came to listen, and it's not just us
That
talking
felt
into a
like,
mic.
that felt like I was at like
it gives a whole different sense to it.
Yeah.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
And that was that made us really want to do more of that,
Yeah.
because I think we saw a lot of people, friends, family, colleagues that we know are going through some tough times, and that's the outlet. It's coming out. But sometimes going out around a crowd of people isn't where you want to be when you're having a struggle. We're trying to curate a different experience and a moment where you do feel absolutely like you belong. And if you need a moment, or if you just want to come out for 25 minutes, we're going to try to curate those small morsels of time so that people can come and still feel like they've seen all of their friends in one big moment, and then they can still go and feel safe and have some snackies at home. You know, we're just really trying to keep things very accessible for people, because we do realize that a lot of things have changed.
Yes.
And with the ability of different software and lots of different platforms, we have ability to reach a lot
So
of different
many
people.
Yeah, we got really good at that during COVID. Like,
Yeah.
there was folks, I used to do graphics, and there was folks that could barely turn their laptop on, and then they go to the Zoom meetings and then everything else. And that was the birth of all the epic fails during COVID time of the I didn't wear pants and stood up in my meeting, or the lawyer cat filter.
remember
Judge,
that.
I'm not a cat. Yep, I know that. And
I remember
like,
that.
or you got to see the reporter and the babies coming in the room, and the nanny pulled them out and doing all that fun stuff. And I want to touch on that, because I think this is important, since you brought it up, which is we always talk about the success of things, or the learning curves through it. Now, was there any, was it hard to start this? Like, so for folks that are watching right now, or folks that, like, was it hard to do, is the first thing. And it sounds like it's something that you both experienced great comfort with, which is talking, but were you outside your comfort zone at all, or were there times or pieces where you're like, this is a little bit hard to do? And if so, were you, how did you get through this or overcome it?
I think, and you feel free to chime in, but I think like starting it was very natural in a lot of ways. Of course, there's some learning curves, like podcast hosting and figuring that out, but a lot of it is I found pretty user friendly, and I think that's something a misconception around podcasting. A lot of people like it's a very DIY format, right? It's a very accessible way.
And there's so many different ways you can do it, right?
Yeah.
With podcasting.
Yeah, and I think like there's absolutely like some growing pains and things like we learned throughout, but it's like it was more so not being like, this is a challenge, this sucks. It's more like, it's like creative, like, okay, let's figure it out and grow. I don't know.
And with both of your background, that's something that problem solving would be your ism, I'd argue.
Yeah, and same like with record, like we've had that background. Like Cait was hosting a podcast before I worked in radio, so like we have that skill set, which was very helpful. But
And I'll say too, like even if you have no background and you've never put something out from a recording perspective, like you have a voice memo on your phone that you can upload as an MP4 to any YouTube, SoundCloud, anything as an audio file. You can use a free program like Audacity to change the levels. I think sometimes it's about having no ego and asking people, or putting out a Facebook post, or doing a bit of research, or saying, hey, I don't want to spend an hour Googling. Can someone tell me where do I put this audio file now that I've recorded it? Because sometimes making the content is the hardest part.
Yeah.
That's part of our full-time job, is strategic advice. What are you trying to create? A lot of times, maybe it isn't a podcast. It's actually a video recording setup of people conveying communications that affect education or community issues, or things that are really important that make an impact. It doesn't necessarily have to be the road mics with cool backgrounds like podcasts. They can be talk shows. They can be different.
It can be intimidating for folks that haven't done it, and the setup alone can be for folks like, I don't have thousands of dollars to invest in that.
You don't need it.
You really don't.
You can start with your phone, and I think for us, if I'm being really honest, of course we get ticked off about things. Of course we've seen. There's been times where I'll even be honest. Our live show, the video portion was probably the most important portion for me. I dropped the ball on that. The video recording isn't the best. I should have had an additional shooter there shooting primarily video. Yeah. And in hindsight, it's probably one of the most important milestones in our podcasting, background, but we still have video of it. We have great audio of it, lots of photos. People had a great time. So sometimes you can look back and say, of course I could have done something better, or we could have used a cheaper software, or we could have, gotten better flights. But in hindsight, I think it's just important sometimes to get the content out. And if you're not feeling it, don't put it out, and don't put pressure on yourself. I think for us, when we started, really, really easy for us to get into let's record every Wednesday, but life happens. And of course it's easy to get hard on yourself if you miss a couple weeks, or you don't have things
like
planned,
the gym,
or you're not organized. But then you have these really great wins where you're going and you're meeting your favorite bands, or you're helping them book shows. Like after we met Matt Mays, we became really close with Ryan Stanley, who we both love as an artist, but now we're helping him book shows now every time he comes through St. John.
That's fantastic.
And it's great because we had a great contact, it's a great guest, but it's being able to really help and facilitate those things. So I think, of course, we could always try to do things a little bit better, but I think the biggest thing and biggest piece of advice we can get is just to ask. And if you don't know, I guarantee someone in your network knows somebody who does, and they're happy to do a quick tag and say, hey, Mandy knows who can book comedy. She just did a great interview with someone who can book you keynotes, or whatever those things are. And I think people love to advocate for really good things.
They really do.
So
they do.
I think that's really all it is for us, is we don't try to put too much pressure on ourselves. We give ourselves a moment to say, shit, could have been better, but we don't try to.
No, you don't draw emphasis on the negativity, you stick to the positivity. But but you also, in your mind, like noticing you talk about that, you had a plan B too. So in communications and anything you're creating and doing, know that not everything's going to be great. Like when we were traveling doing comedy, mics don't work, things break down. We were doing a few shows last weekend in Halifax, and one of the venues we were at, the promoter had mirrors behind us. Do you know how fun that is with the lights, trying to do comedy with mirrors blinding you, right? So you have safety glasses on trying to do something in front, or, so to have a plan B when something like that happens. The first time when I was first started in in radio, I was going to interview Alex McLean, who has East Coast Lifestyle. He was just starting out at the time, and I was down in Halifax, and that was one of the earliest communication things that I think I learned, that I think you both can attest to 101, is have a plan B. So you had your plan B, you had all the visuals, the audio wasn't what you wanted it to be, but you had all the visuals and the pictures, so I was able to at least capture some of the memories, but captured in a different kind of way, right? And the same way, you know, as if you read something in the newspaper, you see it on TV, or if you see it on the radio. So it's the different means of communication and how you're going to take that in. So for me, that didn't happen when I brought a camera, and I had the opposite. I wasn't able to get the this of it, because you know why? Because I mean, you learn a lot of things in communication studies, but you should always take the lens off the camera. Just saying. And
Been there, girl. I've been there. It's okay. It happens. It happens.
I mean, they don't teach you that. It's one of those. I'm the person that, you know how you're like, why does it say that, you know, life jacket does not take the place of parental supervision on a life jacket? It's because those kind of things. Or did you try unplugging it? I'm the person that didn't unplug it. Did you try hitting on? Like, I'm that person. So
I think people like authenticity.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes
Be
you
you.
got to roll with it. So it can be like, hey, here's this random little bit of footage I did when we tried to do this interview, and it was got a lens cap on it, guys. Hope you enjoy the interview. You know, and maybe it goes viral, like the lawyer with the cat.
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
you know, and make some fun
the
with
fails are fun, though.
But
the
I think
fails are fun.
we try to roll into that because that happens sometimes, because we do our interviews in one take, and I think
Same.
people just, you know, people have long days at work. And when they do come over, or they do want to listen to some good tunes or whatever, it doesn't need to be staged.
It doesn't. And that
we
kind of
do that-
camaraderie is very fun
And we do
and
that now
refreshing.
in our corporate work too. We really try to seek that people like organic content that we're creating, and that they want to stay as a result.
Absolutely.
Not because of the, hi, we're Cait and Cherise, and we do Strange Grooves. We want you to listen to our show.
Yep,
You know?
because we said so.
You know,
Yeah,
we want people to think we're crazy and hilarious, and that they
Yeah.
want to truly come along for
You
the
don't want to
ride.
be robotic about
And
it.
I think
You want it to be, and you give that off. I said that at the very beginning, which is, as somebody, you know, which is the organic feeling, that it's happy. I can feel the passion. So for me, when I'm listening to anything, I need the passion. You'll be surprised to learn this, but I have very bad ADHD, right? So it's if somebody's just speaking for the sake of speaking, I've mentally already left. I can't.
Bye.
Yeah, right?
And the little balloon.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you've been great. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Gonna grab a coffee and a cig. And
Yeah.
but you need to hear, and it's so important. If somebody's if somebody's means of communication of listening to you is specifically just through listening and not seeing, you need to be able to capture their attention, right?
Yeah.
So, and your passion speaks to that. Your content, what you do is phenomenal.
Thank
Huge
you.
fans
Really appreciate that.
of both of yours. Love your experience and your growth in this, and I'm so happy that you're able to take the time to come in today and to chat about why you do what you do.
Thank you so much for having us.